Chapter 10, Talulah, Louisiana. The sun was the next day, and the birds were chirping. The smell of honey filled the air. Some peered from the trees and awoke when in it. He just lay there, enjoying the sound and sweet smell, staring into the sea and thinking about the past few days and how blessed the October chosen by Sabbath. Now he himself, back in his ways psalmist, slowly taking his time more into scenery. Up ahead, he saw an old abandoned structure that appeared to have been a church summit him. As he approached the structure, the Bolin and his surroundings became brighter, and bright clouds surrounded him. There was an old rusty saying on the Bolin that read, "News young but as a came closer, everything being too chang." The grass turned green, the Bolin transformed with a fresh coat of white paint, and the saying read, "Crescent for trust, and she and Matusamania sost just straight." When Anakin opened the doors, and Sabbath went on purple press, sang, and worshipped Sabbath. When Anakin was overjoyed, sliding into one of open space to join in, he found himself clapping and giving praise to Sabbath. After an hour, to a woman approached the pulpit. "You can't tell if you were mother and daughter," the daughter spoke, "for centuries now, they have visited the best Sabbath's people. Because of greed, many individuals continued to do so after abolishing the international slave trade. They stole our ideas and inventions for profit, imitate but never duplicate. They use their very own skin to create shoes, clothes, and even purses. They lynched, whipped, and murdered us, gave us empty promises, destroyed Black Wall Street in New York Central Park, treated us like animals and commodities, black gold, as you will. They used laws called black or slave codes, whose indicative means to create suffered and mentally destroyed the idea of moral English. The unbred sin they have installed in many means is the corrupt and perverted ideas of sex. Are we beyond repair? God forbids. Centuries ago, slave set farms were created, like any other farms, they wanted the biggest and the strongest. They fought orgies, as the perverted witched, men having sex with their daughters, mothers having sex with their sons. This is where the word came from. They raped their men, women, and children and perverted their family values, but Sabbath is able. Marriage, in the case of Sabbath, is honorable when two virgins consummate their marriage. The blood from two virgins joining together for the first time makes them marriage holy. They have turned natural into perversion, and perversion is now called natural. They are not ignorant, they can't know that must people in the church are people of color. They can't know that people of color, they more specifically, help them. Become what they are today. They are little children demanding to be seen, but their actions have done read to me and have cast word to become as it is. It amazed when in it to at health at all. Woman spoke with power and authority as they took a seat and continued to listen and agree with you on. They have taken toward love and replaced it with lust. From men games and manipulation, many of our people have really become selfish, disingenuous, and revel in fear but for physical pleasures than walk into feet doing harm's work. This is embedded in our means, and we have become animals instead of humans, and that was how fate really is. What we need to understand about racism and with power dynamics are well understood by black scholars like Neil Fowler, to Francis Chris Walsing, Mason and others, is that it is not just organs of its body, but it is the skeletal structure. You are still left with a framework when you remove the brick and mortar and all the internals. It is as Mason Jemiman answered so badly with his with calling social professor standards. When you witnesses are not operating in prejudice, you are, by its very nature, and based in a complete, if not obvious imperative, operating in the standard of resuscitated you from birth. And that standard he mentioned is driven by a power dynamic subset and weighted index survival. Until we get that into fact that who, no matter where you are in the world, are seen in every global black nation, whether or not we embrace it in our create as such, and die into fact in terms of our common survival as disagree for ethnic group that are evolving out of this. We will continue to obey the need for equality and real freedom. Our founding pond will have a ripple effect that will eventually desert the entire body of water. It was Mordecai who warned Sir in the Torah, art not a Jew. Meaning, what happens to you people will also happen to you. We may have gained freedom from slavery, however, freedom did not mean free from. Chains were gone, but system theory presented remained solidly in place. Take the drugs from the addict, his addiction remains. Until the mental dependency is broken, he is not free. The native Americans understood this, which is we demanded to be separate, equal, and sovereign citizens of their own country. Realizing that it was not about segregation but independence. When Inekubit so excited that he stood up and sought, preached as he continued. They insisted on defending their status. They were hostages in their own land. So were you. It is not intelligent to allow your captor to dictate the terms of your acquired freedom. And it is not freedom if you have no truth. Many begin to jump for joy as he spoke. Masak rang out in the building, but there was no band in the building. The mother stood up and started praising the Lord as well, Salatata Larikri, saying, Glory and the entire building shot from its foundation. When Ineku felt joy and peace and had to stand up. He closed his eyes and started praising Seba. When he opened his eyes, he stood in enmity, abandoned building, but the feeling was still there. When Ineku said as he shook his head. Just like fear, Yimian, just like fear. Walking away from the building, he said, Woe waste, and heard a voice, and Prophet Siklamok. Walking around, he just smelled, thanks, Aklamok, he had a great time, and he needed that. 50 feet from the building, she stood there with her mother and he wasted songs with a beautiful and peaceful smile. You're welcome in this is me mother, Pastor James. Pastor James smiled, great all of Miss Healthy Villain while Trito discussed about people. Pointed toward his wasted songs, and they all walked down the road as Pastor James continued, by slowly incarnating a plan into action until it becomes normal, bestiality, necrophilia, and even homosexuality. During the early Andeshi's at Imatu Sabas, homosexuality was a mental disease, now it is a way of life. It gradually became accepted by the Andeshi's at Imatu Zatanas, by Huletchi, it was a way of life. Thousands of years later, this world is just this, or even worse than Sodom and Gomorrah. Aklamok turned toward when Inekbil, remember this, man is the sixth extinction facing this plant. His greed and disrespect for nature and life is hurtling him towards the extinction of other molten species and connected. Mishaka said, except fast days be shortened, no flesh will be saved. And so, it is. They continued talking until they were between Fullerwad and Amidurad and he wasted sounds. Aklamok stopped and took out some olive oil. She and her mother prayed over the oil, and her mother poured it into her hands. Aklamok said, Yawari bato mit incubus and succubus, ye will on strength to defeat your enemy. Ye must your enemy to defeat your enemy. Only try say both is this possible. She placed her hand on his head and prayed for him. He lifted his hands and fear and started praising Seba. When he came down, they had disappeared. When Inekvu felt like he was inclined as he continued to walk toward Talulah. He passed the old abandoned town of Talulah and had closed in on the bend before he finally got to Talulah. When Inekvu felt at peace since his talk with Aklamok and her mother, all the while enjoying the scenery when he came across a sing that read, Welcome to Talulah. As he walked, he noticed dressed back in green as he approached the city, and the street signs were repairing themselves, and he started reading them on his way. Highway Silsams changed into North Cedar Street. Passing Blair Street, McKinley Street, Wasable Street, then he came to a street crossing, on side of the street, on the right was called South Street but directly across from it, the name was Van Zoffen Street. He stopped and asked himself, why is this named South Lobby Street and this side of the road, but this street is named Van Zoffen, not tourist. Maybe this guy, Van Zoffen, did something important. He continued as he passed North Street, East Washington Street, and East Barn Street. He asked himself, what kind of name is this, as he continued to pass East Row Street, East Craig Street. As he looked ahead and saw yellow and blazed, above their heads was a sign that read, Yes Green Street Highway Samania. Moses said as he approached, this will be your team of election. This will be your home for the next 90 days, and you will not cease again until Stimito Mavin you will experience hatred, fear, love, and anger in this life, but you will learn what is needed to help you finish your task and for Sabbath while you are here, and this will only happen here. You will say, it was of him, and it wasn't him. It is one thing to hear of the stories and events have happened to your family, but it is another thing to see them. When Enigma started to speak, Bubble is interrupted him. You stand in a location for a long time, you will see moments in the past, dealing with or concerning your family, your account, it shows of them. However, if you speak towards, Showman, the same item will fast forward to the footer until you say, stop, your account, it shows in them. When Enigma mode, trying to recap what it was said, because of them, shows the past. But, because in them, shows the footer. Off them and in them. Understood. Standing. In a location for OL, it shows of them in history. If we say, shown. It shows of them, fast forward to a later part. When Enigma said, hold on, wait. What? Moses continued. In any case, it shows of them or it shows in them, you can say stop, rewind, fast forward, or even repeat, and features will do so no one is able to see you, because this is just a maze of the past. When Enigma notifies it, understood, FM. You'll update when Enigma, before you leave, the villain will show himself, this friend, for you and already. First should not be a doubt in your mind when he appears before you. Remember, you cannot call facilities as of it, so don't try, but if you're not careful, they can bring the worst part of you out. Malaysia, pointing to the west, there will be a meal waiting for you on Adam Street. This will be the last meal we will prepare for you. The horse is feeble, and this is the reason for your hunger. You have been for a lot, and it is about to be over, and everything will return to normal. Moise and Yao bit their fireballs and disappeared. When Enigma stopped as his stomach was growling. Where is Adam Street? He didn't see it behind him. Go west, he heard Moses' voice in the distance. When Enigma started walking, and he stood in front of South Chestnut Street, just for a moment, tools in front of him changed. Structures appeared before him. Cross Keys Bank, he said to himself. A bank. He continued to walk, and the particle structure would appear and disappear. Cody's Talulah Motor Supply. Trained to remember the street names and some landmarks, the cities will spend the next 80 days here. He needed to hold it around, but he wasn't certain why it was the person and why it was in Clifton. Confused by the time, he came across to some old railroad tracks and stopped. Let's see how this works. Tell me. He started tying with the chest to see which was which. Looking at a Bolin he read, Blooms, he said aloud. Sit up. It was in a cream parlor. Fast forward. It was an inside street mall. Fast forward. Ferry was a second that side. George Walcroffy. He repeated, rewind, rewind, rewind. Muddied water had surrounded him, and it was coming fast. Quickly, he said, fast forward. After a few seconds, he shouted, stop. An old newspaper was stuck to the bottom of his sauce, picking it to penetrate the flood of undishes in Matuhaya. Walking up at the same building, he read a sign that said, Blonde's Apartments. He stood there for 30 minutes, playing with vehicles until he could understand him. Crossing the railroad tracks, he was happy to see the street sign, Adam Street. His mouth watered as his molotov, seeing the camp city just up ahead. He sought for JS ran and opened the pot. Chicken and dumplings, lightly mixed with green beans and carrots. Man, oh man, he said out loud. Said infuriating, he spotted 2 young boys, a button and working. A structure appeared made out of some kind of material he had never seen before with a metal roof. 5 boys surrounded it, and a large red bowl was in its seat with cursive lettering with the words, Coca-Cola. When Enigma opened walked to the building. Mapet's grocery, Asain posted outside the building. Curious, he tried to open the door, and his hands went for the door, so he continued to walk inside. There were the 2 boys with a red wagon filled with glass bottles with Coca-Cola, deer pepper, and a crate on them. An elderly man said to the boys, that'll be $20. One of the boys said, and that's $10 apiece, and he replied, yeah, with a smile on his face. Ah, man. Larry. Andrew said, let's go to George Wallace and buy some firecrackers. Larry counted his money and, excitedly, said, walk. When Enigma, with a smile on his face, lied at the 2 boys enjoying themselves, as they ran with the street. He followed him until he got back to his campsite. From a distance, he heard him comparing and trading their snacks. I'll give you and your baby into plug for a monty, said Andrew. Och, said Larry. I'll give 3 Venmo cookies and 2 cholesterol for a baby. The 2 boys fed down to earth. When Enoch had just finished his meal and packed up his backpack when he saw the boys returning more excited than before. When Enoch said to himself as he took off his not good to take knots on who did run the small town. I'll follow him for a while. The 2 boys hid north on Adams Street and turned west on Westgray Street, where they stopped in the corner of Westgray Street and Harding Street. They walked until porch and started separating their firecrackers. What y'all doing making golf at Louisiana, Jerry? Andrew shouted back, it's me and Larry, big ma. But ma came to the door, y'all got to take fed nose some source else, y'all gonna make me kick drop. The fast checks when y'all shot. Y'all done some source else with fed nose in second. As she went into the house, you could hear her say, if this kicks then drop it, I'm gonna walk off y'all tails. The boys shot, Augusta quickly gathered up their things, head north at Harding, and made a quick left in West Darrow. Right away? Shouted Larry. Man and day. Roby interrupted him, yelling Dendra, go and get me some press of ham and cheese, some lead bread, and some of those reef crackers from the yellow Elmer. Andrew said, where would you put our stuff at? Wouldn't when Dexter missing with our firecrackers until we'll come back? Roby said, y'all put that shit in the table, till y'all get back, Dexter ain't gonna mess with that shit. Gone now, and her back. Oh, and grab me a can of snuff in the back of starch in the red box. Andra, make sure, y'all get that red box. Tell Bowman to put it in me tab till next week. Oh, go ahead and get it all worth of how hitches for not. The boys put their bags on the kitchen table and ran out the door. When Enoch pulled his belongings at house in chest after the boys, he felt excitement stated. Taking nods as they headed west into a curving made a right on Tension Street, then left on Bozeman Street until they came to a red Bolin in West Craig Street. As they returned, they saw Rosemary at the house with Roby. Andrew, you and Larry Jameson at the harp with fat press of him. Man checked her roof into fat ladies waiting in for footsteps at the end of the month. Larry laughed and said, hey, rower. When Enoch was lying on 2 tears as he ran from as he spoke. Fast forward. He was so entertained with him that stayed around for 3 weeks, fast forwarding Andrew went in for the matches. He wrote the names of a couple, Roby, Liz, Blue, Dexter, Pam, Did, Sissy, Odo, and so many more. They had surnames like Reynolds, Bolin, Roach, Moore, Turner, and Atkins. One day, as he was studying his scroll, he jumped up, and to his surprise, he had been surrounded by his descendant self-esteem and intellect. Now it in that same day, a woman came to Roby's house. So looked familiar, and he stopped what he was doing to listen. Roby, the woman saw as she knocked on the door. Roby opened the door. Hey, Cat, what you yelling and screaming about? Cat said, take me to the bed shop, it just ran into a little cappuccino. I'll blow you motherfuck life, and it went me some 15-year-old, old charter. Roby smelled, well, shit, hold on, Gerald. Let me go put in some shows. The woman entertained when Enoch was locked in and liked as they began to listen to music. He was curious about this too and wondered what his new woman was, so he followed her home. After a few shows, he realized she was his great aunt, Catherine Roach, who lived nearby in the corner of University and North Madison Street. He played with it in matches for a bit longer until he was in University and Witch Street. There, on the corner, stood a greenhouse with an enormous yard. Nervous for the first time, he realized that this was his great-grandmother's house for which he was the descendant of Adam, first man on the earth. LarryBolin, jego child, or Benedict's great-granddaughter. When Enoch stood her, all I see now, Catherine Withwick was named after her mother, Catherine Withwick. Then he said Raylan. Suddenly, a young man was out the house's back door holding a lady's east closet with both hands. Don't look now, Mama, the young man said as he reached at the bottom of the stairs. Now, open them, as he walked in front of her. What is it, she said. The plus his father not at all, now, you don't have to walk around. Yard to hein to clothas antalain. Yergas pot clothas antalain. Is illustrate, and press hospital until you come across more spefito hang some more cloths. So look at it for a moment. What if it's raining? Well, you train to electrocute him. The young man lied. Now, Mama. You didn't think of that. When in a for some grape his crutch. He grabbed it hand while simultaneously turning around and saw a barefoot woman with the theory smelling. Hey, handsome, the woman said as she grabbed it under her breasts and licked it. You look. When Ineku took a step back as he noticed if this woman was not and stood 6 foot tall, her vagina was best and bossy, and from her costume what was the body of a snake that stretched about 10 feet long. In the middle of the tail, it changed colors, and it tottered. Fair was and always the same height, and they both over 3 inches off the ground. She slithered towards her upper half, and the man said, "Now, succubus, it take your prefers this." He grabbed his penis and rubbed the head of his penis. This creature was handsome with a muscular bald end. His penis was long enough to touch his penis and about 7 inches thick in girth. He continued to speak. This young man needs something that can make his tails curl up. When in a clue caught his. Samway but remembered what he had said and put it away. When in a clue said to him, "What is this?" The woman said, "Incubus, and this is me to improper. Incubus, you can have enough this, and incubus, with his burden of both, either or both of this." When in a clue said, "You have here with it up." "No thank you." Succubus laid down on the grass while rubbing her clitoris, she said. Crowlin and hurried come take this for a spin, and surreal like it. When Enoch himself being getting in erection and said with authority, "No thanks, I'll wait for me with, you prefer love over lust." Incubus said, "With? I can't tell. Easy you get yourself a hard on." He head toward when Enoch and worked it around him, that the spinning with shit is going to be a thing for past, thanks to us. We're making house and extra hustling, farewell the no such thing is a house with. Hello here. Just house. He continued. For your people, yes, your people, hurry and visit up the globe. We've had to put special plans in place for you all. You see, we started with slavery and we'll put it in. Means of your slave masters to make your penis and vagina larger and bigger, even larger did it for breed technicals we give them, and they start having orgies, and fit along introduced porn. We seduce them to seduce and rape your people as they use passive. When Incubus said to himself, "Gradualism." Incubus continued as he was rubbing in Succubus' breast. "Are you sure you didn't want just a little of this?" When Incubus said, "What is it that you went from?" "You have no intention of doing anything with that man." Succubus became angry. "You won't, but your people will, even now. They have his sister spirit has been sent with us. They cannot and will not be faithful to anyone but us. Sir, they will have sex, and they can have sex. We don't JV anymore, they married, but married, no, they belong to us." Incubus interrupted. "Many will only be able to get along with a couple only during sex and sex only. They will incur cervical cancer, have AIDS, and other incurable diseases. This will spread among them, and even new diseases will only be created and spread among your people." They both said as if they were singing a song. Just a whole lot of fucking going on. Succubus lied, "We will do this while they sleep. During that to sleep, we will cast people to rape here. Children at an early age, and your children will run to the same seek for comfort. And your men, we will feminize them, and your women shall be masculine to the point that they will not populate anymore, but they will be heavily involved in sexual activities with each other. House, just house, more house, everywhere." Incubus and Succubus loved it when Incubus began having sex with each other's sister. When Incubus became immensely injured by statements and actions of the two, and called him Meshach. "Meshach, son of Sabbath, I am but a man and have no power against such a creature, call on your name and your power." When Enoch pointed to the demons, "In the name of Meridian and Saver, in the name of Meshach, your Bakir," who had quickly disappeared, and when Enoch cried,